Welcome to Cloud&SQLSailor. In this bite-sized demo, I'll be talking about Amazon Aurora and Graviton2 instances. We'll be doing a demo to walk you through how you can efficiently migrate to a Graviton2 based instances for your existing Aurora clusters, which might be powered by Intel based instances. So before we see the demo, let's talk about what is Graviton2 instances. So Graviton2 processors are custom built by AWS using 64-bit ARM Neoverse cores and deliver several performance optimization. So if you are running Graviton2 based instances for your Aurora, you can get up to 20% performance improvement and up to 35% price performance improvement for Aurora depending on various factors. For example, your workload patterns or your database size, etc. So we always recommend you to do testing from your side before you do a Graviton2 instance migration. So let's see this in action. So I've already logged into my account and in the demo, what I'm actually showing you is how easily you can migrate to a Graviton2 based instances for your existing Aurora cluster. So you would ideally want to minimize your downtime when you migrate to Graviton based instances for your Aurora. So this demo will walk you through a scenario and some solutions which will actually make this much more seamless and easy for you. So as I kind of mentioned, I've already logged into my account and I have a demo cluster here in my account. So in the demo cluster, you can see that I have a writer instance which is a DB R5 large. So R5 is an x86 powered, Intel powered instance. And I have a reader instance as well, which is again a DB R5 large, which is x86 based instance. So that's the reader and writer instance I have in my demo cluster. So assume that this is a live cluster, it's taking traffic, right? Both the writer instance and the reader instance is being actively used by your application. And when you move to Graviton based instances, you would want to avoid or minimize the downtime. So one of the easiest way to achieve that is by adding a read replica. There are multiple ways, but one of the easiest ways is by adding a read replica to your cluster. So the way to do that is you would want to select your demo cluster, and by the way, this is available using CLI as well, but for the demo sake, I'm using the console itself. So you will select your demo cluster and then you will go to actions and then say add reader. So adding a reader is again pretty seamless operation. It's just taking a bit to give you the window here, but with add reader options, you will be able to create an instance of Aurora in your cluster, which can be of Graviton2 type. So I'm just giving a kind of a name, DB instance identifier here. So I'll be calling this as reader and underscore Graviton. So here you can see that you have an option to select the instance class, right? So by default, it's pointing to a DB R5 large because your writer instance and the other reader instance in the cluster is R5 large. So by default, it's allowing or pointing you to R5 large. But here you can click and so you cannot have underscore here. So I'm just changing it to Graviton. Here I'm going to select R6G large. So R6G is our Graviton based instances. G stands for Graviton for the ease of understanding, right? So I'm selecting R6G here, which is again a Graviton instance, and then I'm just selecting some of the options. Doesn't really matter, but I'll be selecting availability zone as 1C because I believe my writer instance is in A and the other reader instance is in B, 1B. So I'll be selecting 1C, which is again a different AZ per se. Then pretty much what you need to do is you have to select all the configuration which is needed. For the demo, I'm just disabling all those options which is available. So we'll just go with the basic option. But remember that you need to select an R6G, which is a Graviton based instance for your read replica. So what we will do is we'll just create a reader here. And as you can see here, the reader is being created. So we gave the name as reader Graviton. So it's R6G and it's getting created, right? So this tells you that Aurora will allow you to mix and match instance types or processor type in a single cluster, right? So R5 large is an x86 Intel powered processor, and R6G is an ARM based processor, which is Graviton processor powered by ARM technology, right? So once this reader is created, right, what you can do is you can pretty much failover to that reader instance. And when you do a failover, your reader becomes the writer, and you pretty much can remove this reader the old reader if you want, right? So that way you can easily migrate to Graviton in a seamless fashion. So I have another cluster which I've created. So this instance creation will take a little bit of time. So what I've done is I've created another cluster here. So I'll show you how the failover works as well. So again, we'll just minimize this and maximize this cluster one, another cluster which I have already. So in this cluster one, you can see that I have a writer instance, which is again an R5 large x86 based instance. I'll have another read replica, which is another reader instance, which is again an R5 large, which is x86. And then I have a Graviton based instances, right? So that's the one which we created earlier. So that is up and running in my existing cluster. So that's the R6G, which is a Graviton based instance. So what we will do is we'll try to do a failover and see how the failovers work, how the failover will work seamlessly for you, right? One of the key things you need to note is if you have multiple replicas in your cluster, there is a notion called as failover priority, which you should be caring about. So failover priority will help you failover to a replica with a priority, right? So if you have like 5 replicas in your cluster, you can define priorities for your failover so that Aurora failovers will seamlessly work and will failover to the right instance based on the priority you set, right? So what you normally want to do in this case is probably you have to check your Graviton instance and make sure that your priority is set as correct, set to a lower one, so that the failover will happen seamlessly to that particular replica. So here in this case, the failover priority is 0. I have already changed it, so that way it will, when I trigger a failover, it will make sure that this reader instance gets promoted, right? So if you want to check or if you want to ever change the failover priority, you pretty much click modify button option, which is available for your instance, and then you can change the failover priority. So as you kind of see here, you scroll down and then you select the failover priority, right? So Aurora supports 15 read replicas, so that's why we have like 15 tier ones or tiers which is available. So I've selected tier 0 already for that Graviton. So when I trigger a failover, ideally this Graviton instance should be promoted as a writer instance. Okay, so that's the idea. So what we will do is, again, we'll go to the cluster and we'll say, or I need to select an instance. I'm selecting Graviton instance, and then I'm saying failover. So what we will do is we'll trigger a failover. It'll take a while for the UI to reflect the failover, and we'll just keep refreshing, and we'll talk in between when that gets reflected in the UI. But in an essence, what we have done so far is we created a read replica, which is a Graviton instance, and Aurora cluster will allow you to mix and match. So that's why you are seeing R5 large and R6G large, which is x86 and Graviton based instances in your cluster. And once you have that read replica, you can pretty much pick a window and then failover seamlessly. This failover action should not take a lot of time to complete. It's pretty a kind of a minor operation behind the scene. So it should be pretty easy to do that. So as you can see here, now the Graviton instance is the writer instance now, and the previous instance became the reader instance, right? So it's a pretty seamless move to kind of upgrade or migrate to Graviton based instances in your Aurora cluster. So by creating a read replica, you can efficiently do this migration. You have an option to modify an existing reader. So for example, if you don't want to create an additional reader to your cluster, you can always modify your existing reader instance as well. So assume that you have one writer and one reader instance in your cluster. You can always modify the existing reader. So for example, assume that I don't have this Graviton instance in my cluster. I only have a writer and a reader. I can always modify the reader as well. So if I click on modify, it'll take a bit to kind of spin up the UI or the selections here. So we'll just wait for a sec. There you go. Now here, as you can see here, you can always change it to R6G large, and then you pretty much come here and say continue and say apply immediately, or you can apply that using a maintenance window as well. So yeah, there are multiple options for you to seamlessly migrate to a Graviton instance, and Graviton instance will give you that kind of performance improvement, as I said, and it's all based on your workload patterns and database size, etc. So we highly encourage you to test this in your staging and dev environments before you make a move in your production. But yeah, Graviton gives you a lot of improvements at a better price. So hope you find this video useful. I'll be coming over again to talk about a different topic next time. So see you soon.